To my dear friend who lives beside my world, I'm writing while my lamp chooses a gentle glow. The keys under my fingers ask for pauses, and I oblige with small rests that sound like a kind smile. I promised you everyday truths, so I will not explain our rules, I will only tell you what happened today. The road outside my window slowed the morning traffic because it felt a strain in its oldest curve. My city listens when the road speaks, so patrols came not with fines but with tea and cones in the plan. The cones like short shifts and warm sunlight, so they agreed to stand in a neat pattern that made the curve rest. Drivers waited, and the road sighed in a way you could feel through your steering wheel, like a cat settling. We measure success by how many things relax without anyone getting ignored. That is our idea of good order, and it is a quiet kind of order. I know you will ask how we learned to hear, and I will say that hearing came after we decided to ask. Asking changed us, because asking without power teaches patience. Patience changed the city, because the city is full of long memories that have led patience. My job is object liaison, so people call me when a thing refuses, or a thing is hurt, or a thing is lonely. Today I mediated between a carpenter and a hammer that wanted a gentler rhythm. It was not a complaint, it was a request for a work song that wastes less of the hammer's life. We set a pace on a timer, and the hammer tapped along with a steady tone that kept the carpenter from rushing. The table we were building seemed proud. The floorboards said they would not creak about this project any more. The invoice was short because there was less breakage and no splinters, which means the shop cat was also content. I often think that contentment is the cheapest kind of wealth. You might think law comes last in such stories, but here law sits very close to the first hello. We use consent registries, which are shed calendars of when and how objects wish to work. They are not perfect, but they keep us from assuming that strength equals availability. A kettle that is boiled all week will ask for a day of cold, and we schedule tea around that. The registry makes people laugh at first, but then they remember how many people need rest too. I have seen kitchens become kinder rooms because a kettle taught everyone to pace their hunger. Think of consent as a soft door that opens because it was asked and not pride. We learned that forced doors rot in ways you cannot sand away. This lesson guides our streets, our factories, and our beds. It guides our bridges most of all, because bridges carry the pride of both shores. Last month a bridge called for a collective pause after a freight week with too many heavy loads. The bridge never yelled, it simply shortened its welcome and trucks felt the reluctance as a trembling approach. Riders pulled back, dispatchers called me, and we gathered at the first arch with blankets and diagrams. We listened for the kind of stiffness that means fear rather than boredom. Fear has a quicker tempo, and boredom has a lower hum, so the engineers tuned maintenance like musicians. They rubbed warm oil along joints and told quiet stories about old crossings and lucky winds. By sunset the bridge stretched like someone who decided not to move house after all. I crossed last and I said thank you in the slow three-tap pattern that bridges favour. If this sounds charming, believe me that it can also be difficult and slow. Difficulty arrives when our needs clash with the needs of things that do not share our calendars. Once in winter our hospitals asked the grid for more power, and the turbines wanted a rest. We negotiated a staggered wake, like shifts at a shelter, and the power rose in careful waves. It was enough to warm the wards while the turbines kept their promise to themselves. A nurse later told me the radiators purred, and I smiled, but I also noted the schedule for spring. There is a cost to every kindness, and the trick is to pay it with respect rather than debt. Lawfulness in our place is not just statutes. It is a pattern of promises that people and objects keep. We keep those promises in mixed courts where judges ask questions in voices shaped for different ears. The benches understand full tone, while carpets relax with round vowels, and windows like crisp endings. We try to meet them where they listen best, because clear hearing is faster than loud speech. Evidence can be very direct here, so a cracked window will tell us how the blow landed. When a teenager tosses a ball and forgets to ask, the window may forgive if the apology lands true. If the apology is weak, the window will ask for a day of quiet light and a new frame. Most cases end with a repair and a gratitude note rather than punishment. Do not think we are soft, because harm still matters and patterns of harm matter more. Repeat cruelty to objects creates a chill around a person that doors can sense before hands touch the handle. Doors are simple souls with strong boundaries, and they guard kind houses very well. We have a registry of warnings that doors share with us, and we follow it with care. Sometimes a person who refuses consent learns what it is like to be refused entry. Refusal is a mirror that shows the shape of your reach, and many people do not like that reflection. Most change after 2 mirrors, which feels like the right number for proud hearts. You asked once about weapons, and I promised a brief answer that would not frighten you. Many weapons here refuse to fire unless the cause is plainly defensive and plainly shared. Plainly means that the weapon, and the carrier, and the target all understand the reason through a common rule. This is rare, and so violence is rare too, which means our anger has to move through talk and not heat. The police carry shields that like to be bumped by friendly hands at festivals, and that keeps them from hardening. When a riot nearly formed, the shields asked the square for a song, and the song steadied the crowd. I cannot prove this to you, but I suspect songs taste like water to anxious tools. Our politics changed the moment we accepted testimony from matter, because voice became a wider word. We created a small chamber for delegates that are not flesh, and we rotate representation through seasons. Spring seats go to soil and seed, summer seats to rivers and roads, autumn seats to books and barns, and winter seats to stone and wire. People laughed at first, and then they started losing debates to a stack of ledgers with very patient mirth. A ledger debates like a river, slow and purposeful with details that wear away bad ideas. In one famous vote the archive block argued against a new highway by listing all the voices that would be muffled. It named schoolyards and courtyards and balconies, and it asked whether speed was a reason to cut 1,000 songs. The highway moved to the edge of the city after that speech, and the courtyards thanked us with winter oranges. Commerce adapted by treating objects as partners with shares and not as silent assets. A bakery gives its ovens profit points which they spend on cooler months and new bricks for a cousin in the next street. The cousin oven warms a soup kitchen on cold nights and writes very shy thank you notes in steam. Insurance covers repair and rest for objects, and it also covers grief for people who lose a faithful tool. I have cried while holding a sewing machine that stitched 3 generations and then asked to retire. We held a small wake and display its first dress, and I swear the dress stood a bit taller. Grief is easier when it looks like gratitude, and gratitude is easier when it looks like a party with soft music. The children are the best at this because they learn to listen before they learn to own. In school they practice the slow tapping language we use with shy objects. A fence once warned a class about a storm by leaning in the gentle way that means danger, and the teacher led them inside at once. The fence lost one board and gained a ribbon, and the children drew faces on the ribbon so the fence would feel seen. We do not think this is childish, we think it is good public safety. Listening reduces emergencies more cheaply than sirens. It also makes beauty easier to make, because beauty is a kind of agreement between materials and hands. Our urban design follows that agreement by asking blocks to cluster by comfort rather than by zoning alone. Glass likes height and open views, brick likes warmth and steady neighbours, wood likes courtyards where stories can sit. The result is a skyline that looks cooperative rather than competitive. Streets are planned for the moods of the day, with certain lanes set aside for mornings that want silence. We let the pavement choose which shoes it prefers on those lanes, and runners learn the rhythm quickly. Public benches keep a lot of conversations they host, not the words, only the weight and the length and the laughter. Benches use the logs to ask for shade, or for paint, or for a position near music or near water. We respect those wishes and we get fewer splinters and more first dates. Libraries are a special case because they negotiate with shelves, chairs, light and the air itself. The air likes motion in spirals, so we hang ribbons as guides, and the air reads them better than signs. Readers settle into the curves and the pages do not tire as quickly. Books speak too, but in a tone that belongs to their paper, so they usually request gentle hands and slow page turns. We lend bookmarks as promises, and fines are very rare because promises feel nicer than penalties. Manufacturing changed deeply because factories must hold votes among machines about schedules and wear. A line that, once rest, will slow a bit and signal the floor, and managers adjust goals before breakdowns. Wages include a small levy that funds wrist cycles to tools, which sounds strange until you see the savings. Most companies now publish kindness indices that include how often a forklift refuses a risky lift. Investors watch these numbers because kindness to matter predicts kindness to workers. Kindness is good credit. Even advertising changed because a product will not pose beside claims that make it blush or frown. An honest pan will say it browns well but hates metal forks, and people accept that boundary because the pan is the expert. Experts are the things that do the work, and we finally treat them as such. Art took a tender turn when sculptors learned to consult stone about what shape it already felt inside itself. One sculptor I know waits for a pebble to choose the first cut, and the chisel smiles when it gets it right. Concert halls ask their walls about pitch, and the walls request fabrics that catch high notes like butterflies. When the roof is in a mood for storms, the conductor lowers the tempos, and the audience leaves with a new respect for clouds. Home life is full of small treaties that make romance easier and chores lighter. My kettle likes quiet mornings and my mugs prefer warm rinses, and I honour both even when I rush. The floor dislikes crumbs but loves sunlight, and the rug wants stories told while feet are bare. If this sounds like being ruled by objects, please know that the trade is fair. I give attention and I get ease, and ease gives me time to love the people who share my table. Love grows where force shrinks, and I am greedy for love. There are still disputes that break hearts, and I will tell you one with the ending already safe. A violin refused a master because the pressure of fang made its grain ache. The master felt insulted and called me, and I listened to both until the room cooled. We found a student with soft wrists and bright patience, and the violin agreed to try for 3 months. The master now visits on Sundays, and the instrument plays for both with a tone that feels like mercy. Mercy tastes like warm fruit to objects, which is why orchards are such chatty places. I spend many weekends among apple trees because branches give the clearest advice on balance. When I worry about my own choices, I ask the ladder how to hold weight and still be kind. The ladder always says to square the feet and to breathe slowly so that the grain can remember the tree. Remembering the tree is a rule we apply to ourselves too. We'll ask where we come from and who we lean on and what kind of wind we can welcome today. This is not magic, it is practice. Practice means we fail often but fail softly, and softness lets us try again without shame. Some tourists arrive and whisper that our way seems slow, and I nod because yes, it is slower than command. Then they borrow a bicycle that chooses a lane for them, and they arrive smiling at a place that wanted them. Wanting matters, because to be wanted by a street is to relax your shoulders for the rest of the day. Relaxed shoulders breed patient tempers, and patient tempers are the quiet engines of safety. You asked about prayer in a world like mine, and I can answer without argument. Prayer is tension folded into gratitude, and matter is very fond of both. We hold a listening festival each year where people sit and let the city do the talking. The loudest part is the silence between lanterns, which teaches us how to leave space for meaning. I once felt a lantern grow lighter when I forgave someone, and that was lesson enough for a season. Grief also has a place, and it is not small. When a house chooses to end its service, we move the family into the garden and sit with them. The house tells stories through draughts and scents and tiny sounds in the night, and the family writes them down. On the last day we carry out a door and turn it into a table, and we promise to eat without quarrel upon it. Quarrels taste like rust to old wood, so the table keeps us polite long after the house is gone. I learned my trade from a grandmother who listened to clocks for a living. She said that time is kinder when you wind it before it asks. I tried to wind people too, which is another way to say I check in before a crisis. Checking in is cheap and revival is priceless, and clocks know this better than anyone. I'm often asked whether objects ever lie, and I answer that some do but very rarely and only to avoid shame. Shame sounds brittle, and most things dislike brittleness. If you meet a brittle voice, go slow and offer a safe task, and truth will usually return. My city runs on that rule and one more, which is that respect must be audible. An inaudible respect is fine for saints, but cities require noise, so we say thank you out loud. We say it to the tram that breaks kindly, to the bin that swallows hard days, to the lock that waits in rain. We say it until it becomes a habit, and then we keep saying it because habits are how worlds stay built. When I travel, I pack thank you notes and a small cloth for introductions. The cloth helps with things that prefer touch to words, and many things do. You would be surprised how many problems vanish after a gentle wipe along the tired edge. A wiped edge says, I see you, and seen edges carry us longer. Our engineers design for being seen by choosing screws that like company and hinges that enjoy music. We test devices with lullabies and with jokes, and if a joke makes a hinge click, we adjust the load. Jokes are not fluff here, they are lubrication for pride and fear. Pride and fear seize under pressure, and laughter loosens the fit. Perhaps you think all this makes us fragile, and I will answer that it makes us aware. Awareness catches cracks before they spread, and that is the opposite of fragility. Awareness taught us how to handle emergencies with care instead of panic. During a storm last year, the streetlights dimmed to guide people to shelters with a soft pulse. The pulse felt like a hand on the shoulder, and the city moved in unison without shouting. Afterward the lights asked for stories of courage, and we printed them in small books that lamps like to read. Yes, lamps can read if you choose the right font, which is wide and steady and a little shy. That sentence makes me smile, and smiling keeps me honest. Honesty is the glue of our strange bargains with matter. Without honesty you are just manipulating, and manipulation breaks the secret joints where trust lives. I would rather be slow and trusted than fast and alone. I think you would rather that too, even if you do not use our words for it. You already live with things that hint at needs, and you already answer some of them without thinking. You soften shoes that rub, you rest screens that blare, you praise tools that fit your hand. These are the seeds of our way, and seeds travel without passports. Tonight I asked you to try one small experiment before you sleep. Choose one thing that has worked hard for you today and set it in a place of honour. Speak one sentence of thanks in a calm voice, and then wait 5 breaths with your palms open. Do not demand an answer, only watch for a tiny shift in ease. Ease is the first language, and it is very fluent. If you feel even a hint of ease, write me back through the usual gap between our worlds. The gap is reliable when you whisper into a clean glass, and I will listen near my window. If you hear nothing, write me anyway, and we will choose a better question next time. Good questions are like good tools. They make work feel shorter. I promised a personal note at the end, and here it is. Well, I am tired in the good way, and my keyboard asks for lemon oil tomorrow. My street is planning a little feast for the bench that turned 70 years old this week. 70 is not old for a bench, but it is a good number for memories. We will serve soup and read from the ledger of conversations the bench has hosted. If you listen tonight, you might hear the bench clearing its voice across the thin places between us. I hope the sound lands like a warm scarf around your shoulders. I will end this letter as the lamp dims by choice rather than by command. Your friend who lives beside your world. Thank you for listening to the end of my letter. If this touched you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Please share a comment with your thoughts or a question, because your words help this journey grow. If you want to support the channel, please use the QR code at the bottom right or the link in the description. You will also find links in the description to other works from very different series. Until next time, please keep listening to the quiet things and join me again for the next letter.